Thank you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Purpose Driven Champs. I'm your host, William Grayson Jr. with my sidekick, William Harris. How you doing, Will?
Doing great.
And today we got Ralph Dorsey from where are you from, Ralph?
I'm from Chester, Pennsylvania.
Chester, Pennsylvania. Ralph, can you tell them about yourself, please?
Yeah, well, I'm 54 years old. I've been involved with youth sports as well as basketball almost my whole life. I'm the president of Chester Biddy Basketball League. We've been established in the city well before I was born, but it's been established since 1955, and I've been the president since 2000. Since the year 2000.
All right. My first question for you is what inspired you to start coaching basketball, and what keeps you motivated to continue doing it?
As a kid, I was involved with basketball, and I go back to the days where growing up, it was hard to get on the court, and you say, I can't wait till one day I get my own team. And then, as I got older, I seen what it was like, and I got hooked up with one of my mentors, who's also on podcast, William Harris, who I talked to him a lot, followed him, and learned from him, by getting on his nerves, badgering him and stuff like that. But the only thing I was trying to do is learn. That's the way some people learn, just by getting on somebody's nerves, messing with them and stuff, and also being a part of a system.
There you go. How do you handle setbacks and losses in the game, and how do you learn from those experiences?
Well, I haven't really. This is my first time coaching again. I had an All-Star game. I got the 9-year-old All-Star team, but I really haven't coached in a couple years because I had a stroke a few years ago. So that limited me to coaching the passionately, not passionately, but the performing way that I wanted to. I still got the passion, but I can't get up because I also had a prosthetic. So that hinders me from standing up long. So I pretty much coach now from sitting down, and it's a different feeling than standing up, doing instructing play by play, teaching kids the drills and things like that. So it's a different tool for me now, learning these new aspects of it. But I'm right on track the last 2 years. After the stroke, coaching again, I'm ready to go out here and win these kids some more trophies.
Okay.
Ralph, when you being a former player and your love of basketball and your passion, what kind of made you want to make a difference in the lives of youth and give back to the community? What made you want to do that?
I mean, and it's really because of following certain guy footsteps, and I have to say you were one of them. And the way that I was brought up, the family setting, the peer pressure, people in my community, young and old, and I see that it was needed. And as a kid, I didn't notice, but people always say that I knew you was going to be a leader when you was younger, but it's something they saw in me, and it carried on to now today, and I want to continue doing it as much long as I can.
What challenges are you faced with? One, when dealing with youth, and of course, dealing with parents. What are your challenges?
Um, well, really, I got a good rapport with the parent, with the youth and the parents, because for one thing, I got a friendly personality, and they know that I care because how much time I put in and what I do. So I pretty much keep it honest, keep it clean, and try to stay transparent. Whether it's a youth, I still to their level. Whether it's adult, I can act like a professional and do whatever I need to do to make things happen.
During the game, could you describe a moment during a gameplay where you felt really proud, like you said, of coaching your kids after, before that they overcame something?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many. You got to give me a second to think. I'm gonna think of something in the last 2 years. I can tell you, We went to New York and this past summer to play at the Verkers Park, and I
Mhm.
always talk to my kids about teams before me when I went up there, how big the trophies were and things like that. And I had a bit put it, said to my kids, which one of us is going to come back with that 6 foot trophy, not knowing that anyone would get it, be the MVP. But one of my players in his first year on my team, he started hanging at my house, and I've seen him developing over time. And his name is Chicken Rap. They call him Chicken Rap. That's his nickname that we're gonna call him by. He got the MVP of the whole tournament game that we had down there, and that made me feel real proud. To see something we talked about all the way up there, and something that I would never forget about how big those trophies were that they were awarding the kids, and it was fair game. And he put on a performance up there. I mean, the commentator called his name at least 20 times. And we knew he was going to get the MVP at the end of the game just by his performance and our winning attitude.
What do you think is the most important part in the aspects of practice?
Um, fundamentals, working on fundamentals and character. So you can get to your fundamentals on a basketball court, but you're always going to have team meetings at practice, so you get to find out about these kids' characteristics and things like that, and how they are. And I think that's important to know how to deal with kids, because some kids you can holler at, some kids you got to be gentle with.
Yeah.
Ralph, you being a former player, knowing the game, and now you have children, and I truly believe talent is something that's hereditary. How was it for you being Ralph, the coach of other young people, versus Ralph giving your children input and trying to coach them? How was that?
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard for me to coach my own kids, because even like when I had my older kids, I learned the valuable lesson from, because I would chastise them a lot more than I would chastise the other kids. And my son told me one time, he said, "Dad, I was always on your side, but you always like took stuff out on me." So I changed my ways when I got with my younger kids. I started being more passionate with them, more caring and more loving, and being more fair with them. And they turned out to be pretty good ball players. But and when you talk about it's inherited, I'm from a family, Dorsey's and Williams, but I think the basketball part came from the Williams part, because I had a few uncles. I met one of them. Well, I know one of them, but another one died when I was before I was even born. They said he was said to be one of the best ball players who ever come out of Chester. His name is Paul Williams. He suddenly passed away on the basketball court in college. His first year of college, he finally passed away. So I know that's where my kids get it from, and I hear about the days of my uncle Will Earl Williams, Earl Freezer Williams. I hear about him. He was an excellent ball player, and I had a cousin named Paul Williams. He was 6'4", ball player. So I think I get from their family, and so do my kids.
Your daughter, Imani Dorsey, one of the
Uh huh.
top one of the top guards in the state as a sophomore. What has been the enjoyment from you for you to see her develop and become the player that she is? How has that been as a father?
And I'm gonna tell you right, with all my kids, I try to build a basketball court somewhere in my neighborhood, either behind my house or down the street, and take my kids there. And I had the luxury of the last few years to build, when they was growing up, to be right next to an apartment building that had a big field with a big field in it, that I was actually able to get the kids in the neighborhood to go to help me put the courts and stuff together. So we had 2 whole courts out there. And from the time my kids like 5 years old, they would go out there and play every day. They would argue, they would fuss, they would fight, and they kept at it, And I'd be in the house. I'm a barber too, So I would be in the back shed cutting hair and hear them out there arguing and fussing and even say, go ask my dad about this call, that call. And when they come and ask me, I say, y'all got to figure that out. All y'all got phones. Y'all can Google that stuff. Y'all do y'all need to do to find and learn how to play. So I pretty much put them out there, put the course out there, and let them go wild on it. The same way I grew up.
What strategies do you use to stay focused and maintain high levels of energy during y'all games?
Well, I don't get up anymore. I sit down. I mean, like I said, I try to jump up sometimes, but I don't want to fall and embarrass myself with this prosthetic I have on. So I pretty much sit there calm and collectively and just watch the games. And then I go right home and watch the game 10 or 15 times in 1 week just to talk to my kids for 2 or 3 minutes every time they come knock on my bedroom door, or I see them in the living room, or hear them going in the bathroom. I always say, come here and pick their ears off about something I saw in the game. So I don't really get real hype or anything anymore. I used to curse the refs out, act like the typical young coaches do now. But I'm not that young anymore, and I'm also handicapped, so I can't get up and jump around. I can't dance with nobody no more. So I just keep my butt seated.
All right. Uh, how important is communication during the game?
I mean, that's the most important thing, communication, because you can't play as a team without communication. You know, I always try to have my kids come over there to my side during the game since I'm sitting down and run. If he's sitting on the left side, tell him to come to the left side, throw the ball in your left hand, and come over to where the bench at so I can whisper something to you, because you might not see what I see. And and I might see somebody open around the basket area, even though we got a play going on. I try to sneak a couple things in as they coming down the court.
How much support have you gotten from the city of Chester and the community overall with what you do and what you do for these young people?
Yeah, well, over the years, I've gotten support, from the city. We never asked them for no money, but they give us the vans and stuff like that. They treat us fair. I don't like to ask anybody for anything, but I tell you one thing: whenever we need help, from the community, we'll set up a tag day and might go to a tournament next week, and we'll raise like $1,500 just by standing on the corner raising funds. And I tell them to make sure you say thank you. And if they ask you why we collecting this money, make sure you be firm and tell them straight up what we're doing it for. We've raised over I don't want to put a number amount on, but we've raised a lot of money putting hours in during them tag days. That was the biggest support that I've ever gotten, except for a grant. But I know the grant going to end, but tag day goes on forever. As long as somebody riding down the street, and we organize, we can get out there and do what we need to do to get money to go to any tournament we go to. And that's from people from the city that know what I'm doing, that want to help our kids, and that's going to support us. Say they'll give us $1. If somebody takes some money, and that you give them, and decide they want to take it and get a car, that's on their conscience. But our people know what I'm doing with it, so they can respect that. Ain't no asking, well, what do he do with this or what do he do with that? But it's starting to be different for me at Chester Bitty League. Things are starting to be different. We got a new board in. They want everything crossed, all T's crossed. So and I'm not getting any younger, so I got to learn how to work with this new board, and it's hard for me right now. I must admit that, but I'm trying my hardest to do this, to work with the new board of directors that we have there.
Ralph, with Chester, we got the highest crime rate of any city in the country, lowest educational rate in Pennsylvania, highest teen pregnancy rate. What do you use and how do you communicate to the youth so they won't get caught up in the distractions in our city?
That's a good one, because I worked for the city of Chester for 20 years. I started out working at the barbershop, and I got a lot of knowledge from there, from the old heads, Reedy, and people like that, Tone Wally. I've worked with them for for about 3 or 4 years when I first started. Then it went on for about 20 years, about 12 years working at the barbershop. And then I left there and started working for the city where I was doing outreach work on health at the health department, character building, violence prevention, teenage pregnancy, and things like that. So I was actually in the school talking to kids, and I was the middle school coach at the time. So I was able to reach some kids, one on one and talk to them. And all I got to do is say, I know your parent. And if I do know the parent, I can relate to the kid more because I know where they coming from. And I might not know how they feeling that day, but I know where they coming from. And I know some of them might not have eaten that night. I know some of them might not have seen their mom in the morning when they got up to go for school. I know that some of them, are sexually active, not because they want to be, because, peer pressure and because, people taking advantage of them. So I always keep that on my mind, when I work with kids about growing up and things like that, family and different situations. So I'm able to relate to them in a real way, and they often speak out to me whenever they see something wrong. But I can tell you these younger kids that's growing up now, 13, 12, 11, they have a different mentality than all these other kids that grew up. So it's going to be harder to work with these kids, and we need to get them while we can before they turn 13, 14 years old. Let's get them while they babies.
What's the key qualities that you look for in a player?
A teamwork, compassion for others, commitment to your team,
Mm.
and willing to do what you got to do to win that game.
There you go. That's good. What does a championship mean to you and your players?
Well, I can tell you I done been involved with so many championship games. I can tell you at least 40 or 50 in my lifetime, and that goes back to even when I was playing. As a kid, as a high school player, rec league. Traveling with travel teams, and now coaching. It might be over 50 championships. I'm quite sure it is. But I'll tell you, I love it for my kids. I want to make them want to win more than I want to win, because it's not for me. It's for them. These kids can think about this for the rest of their lives. Because they're not giving us trophies anymore. Everybody's getting medals. So what I do, I make sure at least my top player in that game going to get that championship award, and because I got so many trophies in my lifetime, I don't need anymore. So I'll make sure when the top player on that team get that trophy if we win. And what I've been doing also lately is saving up enough money for every team that I coach, that instead of getting a medal, you know, throughout the season, I try to have a tournament or something to raise money and give everybody there, all the winning teams, a trophy. Instead of a medal. I'd rather spend that 20 for a kid for a lifetime than go get a $4 medal. Get a $4 medal that the kid gonna lose anyway. So
Yeah.
I try to get something for him to remember.
What is most rewarding for you for what you do? What's the most rewarding thing for you?
When I pick them kids up on a van and get to a tournament, and whether we win or lose that game, go to the hotel room, get something to eat with the kids, and just bust it up and have conversations with them, and let them tell me how their day is going, and they'll begin to open up to you and tell you about something that happened at home, and then you get a sense on getting to know kids, and when you get to know kids, that mean you're getting to know families in the future, because them kids gonna have a family one day, and I want to be familiar with the parent too. So I get familiar with the kid, the parents, and then next thing I'm familiar with the grandparents. And when the kids have kids, they'll bring them to my program and say, "Yo, this is my grandson or my son." So I like doing that.
Tell me a little bit about some of the adversity that you're faced with, not only being a coach, but a president of Chester Biddy.
You know, I really don't want to speak on that part right now because it's going to bring tears to my eyes. So I'd rather not speak to that because I'm in a dilemma now where we're going to have meeting at the meeting on issues that's not even involving the kids. On grown stuff, grown people bullshit. So I'm dealing with that now. So like I said, I don't want to speak on that. If y'all can send me another question.
Yeah, I got one. This is my last one. What advice would you give the young coaches out there?
Um, Work with your kids, man, and be committed to the kids just as much as you want them to be committed with you. Don't go and get a team one year and then go next year and get a whole new team on the kids. Do this repeatedly. Stay with what you want to do is stay with them kids. Not only deal with them in basketball, love them and do it from the heart and let them feel that passion that you have for them outside of basketball, but in real life. And then the kids will open up to you and be a friend forever for life.
I got my question for you is what changes would you like to see happen in youth basketball?
Mm. For one, I want them to understand that have classes for the parents to talk about conduct, character, professionalism, and respect for others. Because that's the problem when we get to these tournaments and the way they talk to these referees. These referees ain't making no money out there. They there to help out and doing something that they've been doing for their lives and wanting to do. But nowadays, we're chasing referees away. If you notice across the nation, it's a shortage with referees. And if we can do that, we'll be in good shape. And also another thing is open the gyms up for the kids. Open the doors up. Find somebody in all these neighborhoods that's trustworthy, reliable, and that's committed to get these kids off these streets and get them in a setting where they can learn something. And I keep saying not only basketball because that's what I do. I do basketball and I do life skills. So I'm here to help these kids and wholeheartedly. And everybody can't play basketball, but they can always get some life skills.
My last question, Ralph Dorsey. When we all got to leave the planet, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember most about Ralph Dorsey?
And that's a hard one for me too because I don't really think about dying. I don't really think about that. I know one day it's going to come, and I know I still pray every day and night. You know, but I want my legacy to be somebody that helped people. Was there for his community and did it for a lifetime. Did it for a lifetime and did it with a smile through all adversity. And did what he had to do through all adversity and was a resilient person.
That's good. I just want to say before we close, I'm truly proud of you. You're making an impact in the city. Most important of all, you're impacting kids' lives. You're using the great tool of basketball to be a part of their lives, to help them become better people. And I wish you well, man. I look forward to seeing you next week.
And and I want to thank you guys for inviting me on to this podcast. Like I said, this is my first time on the podcast. I just came out the house and got reminded that I had to do this podcast. So I pulled up at the local gas station. That's why you see me looking around, see people waving at me and stuff like that. Because that's the kind of respect I got in the community. People see me and say, "Hey, how you doing? I ain't seen you in a while," or whatever they want to say. But I'm glad to be a part of this, to share my information. Anywhere I can help somebody, I'm going to do that.
All right. Thank you, Ralph. this wraps up another episode of Purpose Driven Chance with my Ace Boon Coon William Harris. Ralph, where can they find you? Your Instagram, Facebook.
You can hit me on Facebook at Ralph Dorsey, or you can look up Chester Bitty Basketball, and I'll pop up as the president of the league. And you can also send me an email at cpride11u at yahoo.com. You know, I'm not on the major circuits because I had the stroke, and then I lose my concentration a lot. So I don't want to be on there looking like no fool or anything. But you can get with me. You can call me anytime you say I got a good conversation. So I'm ready to talk with your ears off.
All right. All right. That wraps it up. All right, people. Good day and good night.